Our next speaker is Dr.Sarath Chandran C, Assistant Professor, the Department of Pharmaceutics, College of Pharmaceutical Science, Government Medical College, Kannur, Pariyaram, Kerala. He completed his graduation and post-graduation from NGSSM Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Mangalore, under Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. Dr. Sarath Chandran is a passionate teacher and enthusiastic researcher who has guided several UG, PG, and PhD students in their research. He has several research publications in both national and international peer-reviewed journals. He was selected and has undergone International Pharmaceutical Federation Pharma Bridge Fellowship Training Program at the School of Pharmacy, University of Southern California. On advanced pharmacy practice and PharmD curriculum of USA. Moreover, he is my favorite teacher and my role model in this pharmacy profession. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Kusina. I think I'm audible, right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Kusina, for a nice introduction. So it's an immense pleasure to join a session, especially with the team from National College of Pharmacy, which we are very closely associated, and we have a wonderful bunch of friends over there. So, and it is a fantastic moment for me to listen Unnikrishnan sir, and I should say, how to be a one-down position with Sunil Gavaskar. So an experienced guy with all, by all means, in research and academia, health education, etc. So follow him is a tough job. Okay. So anyway, I should thank Dr. Vimal, who has called me up and invited me to join for this session as a resource person. And probably at that time, I've given him this particular topic, perception on online education in the context of COVID lockdown. And I probably remember we were not still out of lockdown, at least in our state. So probably that was a reason. And here in this particular presentation, I'm not going to talk much of any kind of theories or etc. Maybe I'm going to share my experiences or my observation over this period of time and my experimentation with, I should say, the ICT-based online education tools and what all experiments I have done, what I've seen, what I've heard. So that's what I'm going to blend here in this particular presentation. I don't think I'll take quite a long session. So we'll just move on to the presentation. So with the permission. Yeah. Yes. So before I start, I just want to give a disclaimer note. I hope the slide is moving, right?
Yes, sir. It's moving. It's moving, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So disclaimer note, because my presentation definitely contains some copyrighted works, the images, etc. So, but I've used it under the exemption for educational purpose. And this presentation is purely intended for educational purpose only. And it does not replace any independent professional judgment or original guidelines or regulations or documents for that matter. The opinions and statements, whatever expressed here, is purely belongs to me and not necessarily from CPS, that is College of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Pariyaram, and my college does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of the information provided herein. But you can believe me, actually. I'm just going to share my opinion, and you have your own objections on my findings or my observations or my statements. Yeah. So let us move on. So these are the contents which I'm going to talk for a while. So I'm going to just brief you about the COVID-19, not really about the pandemic, and what is my brief assessment on impact on education by COVID-19, and how we educational people or the stakeholders of education responded to COVID-19 scenario. And based upon that, what all challenges we faced or what I faced. I'm not going to talk each and every challenges. Probably I've skipped so many challenges or so many obstacles we have faced, but I'm going to bring in something which I felt quite interesting. And I always believe that we must move forward and what should we do to move forward, because this is a long way to go for us. Then my personal experience, I'm going to share at ICT, what I've done with, that is information, communication, and technology-based education. And finally, I just want to wrap up with time to upgrade, and that normalization shouldn't be a distant dream for us, at least the people involved in academia, like students, as well as faculties, parents, and management. Yeah, let us move on. So as all we know that pandemic was struck, COVID-19, and I think in 30th January or something like that, WHO has really considered it as an international concern, a major concern. And probably in the month of March, I don't really remember the date, I think 10th or 11th of March, it was announced as a global pandemic. And it all started in, as we know, Wuhan, because every household now remembers that word or the place called as Wuhan. So Wuhan, it was detected, and China was badly affected. And I believe that in February 2020 or something around that, schools and colleges were forced to shut down in China. So by March 2020, as documents suggest, that nearly 75 countries really announced the closure of schools and colleges at a larger scale. And we also did not lag behind. And everyone may be remembering our PMO has announced at the night that India is also going for lockdown. I think it is on 24th, he has announced it in the night. And by 25th March, we also had nationwide lockdown for 21 days. That was the initial stage, which was later extended for 19 more days. And again, it went on by the state-wise. Many states continued the lockdown for quite a while, and situation was really, really bad. So if you really take the UNESCO data published in 2020, almost in April 20, 186 countries have implemented nationwide closure of academias or institutions or universities, which virtually affected almost 75% of active total enrolled learners in those universities. And COVID-19 has left 1 in 5 students out of the schools or colleges, and situation was really, really bad. And the more and more challenges we were going to face. And all of us remember that COVID-19 did not spare anything. It has really affected our financial sector. It has affected the hospitality sector. It affected the healthcare sector, whatnot. Jobless were rising and families were suffering. So it was altogether a scenario which I never imagined, or even my parents might not have experienced. So our earlier generation, our present generation, our generation and our present new generation has seen something like COVID-19, which we never imagined. Yeah, but definitely education was affected. But I'm an optimistic person, and I always believe that there is no stopping for learning. But still agree that education was badly affected because schools and colleges were shut down, and most of the countries at that time, except the developed countries and some advanced universities, more or less were depending upon what we call as a conventional mode of teaching or learning, or the classroom-based teaching or learning. So that really affected the education or education sector. But again, everywhere there is a response. So how the education segment responded to this? But if you really believe me, when we had this lockdown from March, where the institutions were shut down, and I was really thinking it's going to extend for a while. Since it is announced as a pandemic, with our basic information or basic knowledge or common sense, I was really expecting this is going to long for a while. So on that condition, I really discussed with actually it was happening in April, and as we know, the schools, that is, I'm talking about the 10th level schools in our country, or at least in our state, reopens after the March vacation or the summer vacation by June 1st. So because of the concern for my daughter, I was having a discussion with my her principal, as well as the concerned PTA administrative officer in the school. And actually, they were quite optimistic, and they thought that situation is going to be normalized, is going to be there for a short while, and they are going to start the schools by June 1st in the normal conventional mode. So it is assumed that majority, or at least a huge section, really assumed that the situation will be normalizing soon and campuses could be reopened within weeks. But that never happened. In fact, still we are paying for it. So that never happened. So again, situation went ahead, but at least few faculties, as part of temporary measurement, ask their students to join some massive open online courses like MOOCs. I mean, it is abbreviated as MOOCs. And also they ask them to refer for the e-material or the e-content which was available in some website. So this was considered as a temporary measurement, I should say, but it did not last long. So COVID really triggered the institution across the world, including India, to go for some creative approaches and look for the technologies or look for those so-called ICTs, that is information communication technologies, or some alternative option so that we can combat this situation and bring back the education sector to the normalcy. So this was the attempt. And based on that, I was saying that as we progress from March to April, the scenario was gradually changing, and a lot of approaches was tried by different states, different countries. So every country they tried their own options, like from the basic radios to the advanced platforms were used for the educational purpose. Like if you remember, our Kerala state had the television with Victor's channel as a mode to communicate with the student or to continue with the education activities. There were the countries which really utilized the radio, because radio can reach to the remote areas. So again, the drawbacks were there, but they really utilized the efficiency of radio frequency waves to reach to their students at the remote location. So radios were tried out, televisions were tried out, online platforms like Zoom or Team or video conferencing platforms were tried out. Education web-based platforms like Google Classrooms were tried out. SMS, basic SMS to WhatsApp was tried out. So every country or every state every university was trying out to bring out something which can enable them to continue with their education process. So instructional packages were customized, online instructional resources were created, and it was shared, and even the self-learning was promoted to a greater extent. So scenario was obviously changing, but it was still an alarming one. But as I said earlier, the world was suffering. But in this condition also, there was a segment which was really booming during this particular COVID-19 condition. And I should say, even though it killed a lot of opportunity, but for one particular segment, it was bunch of opportunity. And that was nothing but the edtech companies or the technology companies, which really hunted the opportunity which was vested in the education area. So if I really recollect about the Chinese approach, there is something called as Tencent Classroom, like it is an online platform used in China. So Tencent Classroom was first time extensively used since mid-February, as the Chinese government instructed almost 250 million of full-time students to resume their classes or resume their studies through this online platform. And as one of the reputed journals suggested, this resulted in the largest online movement in the history of education, with approximately 730,000 or almost 81% of K-12 students, that is right from the kindergarten to the +2 level students, attending classes via Tencent K-12 online school just in Wuhan. So that was considered as one of the largest online movement in the history of education at that time. Probably by this time, there are a lot of such movements across the country, even in India. So there it doesn't stop. If you think about our condition, you may be knowing about the baijus. Baiju is Baiju Ravindran. Actually, is a guy from Kannur, and he studied completed his engineering from Kannur Engineering College, Government College in Kannur, Engineering College in Kannur, and he has actually founded this education technology-based company, a startup, which was founded in 2011, and it was a small unknown entity. And where does he stands right now? He's probably listed in the Forbes, and it is going to be the world's highly valued edtech company in 2021. So see his growth from 2011 to 2021. The growth was not that much staggering, but from 2019, the growth was something like a rocket. So if you see his accusations, what he has made from 2019, you can just see the graph, the data which are given. He has acquired the US company Osmo in almost for 120 million. And then White Hat Junior, Great Learning, Topper, Epic, all these MNC-based online education tools he has acquired for millions. And he did not stop there. In 2020, he has even acquired the Akash Institute, who are the pioneers in entrance coaching and etc. So altogether, his acquisitions were valued almost 16.5 billion US dollar, and approximately he has raised almost $2 billion just in 2021. That is the volume, or that is the opportunity vested for edtech education sector for the technology-based companies. So since announcing his free live classes on its Think and Learn app, Baiju has seen almost 200% increase in the number of new students using its product. So why I highlighted this is I'm really wanted to suggest that the education has to combine with the technology. It need not be just Baiju or Tencent Classroom. We have to see all those success stories which really suggest the education can be blended with the technology. Obviously, there are challenges, there are pluses, there are minuses, but we can always change the modes and we can streamline so that we can make it blended as per our requirement. And it doesn't stop here. You may be remembering about the Zoom. Zoom is now a household brand name. We are right now sitting in a Zoom session. And what was Zoom? It was a small company in Silicon Valley, probably founded in 2014. And what is his present position in 2020 onwards? He challenged the global giants like Google. He has challenged the giants like Cisco or Microsoft, but they also forced to modernize their video conferencing tools. And virtually, Zoom has caused so many startups to come out with similar platforms which can really compile with this kind of education sector, also for the business sector. So that suggests that technology must be integrated, and probably COVID-19 scenario really forced us to accept that fact, at least partially. Yeah, let us move on. Now, when you talk about the online education, as Unikishnan sir already mentioned about blended learning, I fully agree. It is the best option, the blended learning, where you combine the conventional teaching with the online education tools or ICT tools. Like blended, I believe that your partial activity shall be carried out even because there are one thing I want to tell you, there are different definitions or different explanations given for blended learning. So it's like you can have your conventional learning right in the classroom, where your activities or assignments or other things can be co-curricular activities can be performed through the online platforms or ICT platform. So it is also called as a blended learning. Then there is something called as flipped learning. That is also highlighted by Unikishnan sir. Now, flipped learning, you just flip your classroom. Like whatever you're supposed to do in a conventional classroom, like you teach in the conventional classroom, will be done at a home, right? Means you will be doing it through the online tools. And the student will be back to the campus to perform the activities related to the classes which are conducted in the online tool. So that is also a very effective way of going for online learning. Then there is something called as hybrid learning. That is another terminology or another mode which is considered in the online education. And it is almost synonymous with blended learning, where you utilize the ICT tools along with the conventional education. So there may not be, in blended learning, I believe that there will be exact proportion you suggest, like how much percentage of the session activities will be performed in the conventional way, how much should be done in the online way. But in hybrid learning, you see the situation, and based on you utilize both the online as well as face-to-face conventional learning. So anyway, I'm not going to detail in much, as I've seen the brochure that these things will be dealt in detail by other resource person. Then there is something called as HyFlex learning. That is also another terminology, which because some of these terminologies you might have already adapted in your sessions. So in HyFlex learning, what happens is the students who can attend the classroom physically will be attending the classes physically, and by the time where the classes will be streamed live, through the through the platform, where the students who couldn't attend the classes physically will be attending the live classes right from his own comfort of his own home. So this is what HyFlex learning means. This I have seen, I have kept a small Photoshop photograph here. Like in HyFlex learning, the student, those who can attend the class will be coming to the college, or will be coming to the class physically, and they'll be listening to your sessions in the classroom. Simultaneously, that same class will be streamed through the online tool, so that it can be attended by the person who couldn't physically attend the classroom. So he'll be at the comfort of his home and doing this, attending the session. So see, this doesn't stop. These are the only approach. There are ubiquitous learning approaches are available. Acronymous learning approaches are available. There are plenty of online learning modes which can be adapted by us. So I strongly believe whatever the learning modes available, we must check whether it is suitable for our style of teaching, or our program requirements or course requirement, or you can just try out the different approaches. Whatever suitable or whatever convenient shall be adapted for our teaching purpose, or our academic purpose. So now, so as I said, there are online modes, already explained about the online modes, and different tools are available for this particular online activities. Now, this is a major concern, in fact. So initially in 2020 March, when we started this online activities due to COVID-19 pandemic, I could see that variety of ICT tools have been tried in one single campus itself. Means it may not be a common scenario across the state or across the country, but I have seen, because we have made few surveys during that period, what I have seen is one surprising thing I will share you. Like in one particular semester itself, means if you take 7th semester or 6th semester as a case, I could see that almost 9 different ICT tools have been adapted by the different faculties. So imagine how complicated the scenario will be for the student. So I have seen like WhatsApp, I have seen Telegram, I have seen some person is using YouTube, some person is using Google Meet, another person is using Zoom. So the student has to download almost all the application in his mobile phone or his laptop. So this was a complicated situation, but again, I'm not going much into it. But what are the common ICT tools which can be used in health education? So there are different tools like video conferencing, teleconferencing, pre-recorded videos, WhatsApp, as Unikishan sir suggested. So I'll just brief you what are the advantages and disadvantages of video conferencing. My personal experience, I can say. So in video conferencing, like you can have the softwares like Team, or you can have the software like what you call Google Meet or Zoom. It always allow a close personal interaction. Let it be in a smaller group or a larger group. Live interaction is very much possible, as we are doing right now. So Unikishan sir was interacting with us very closely. Now that is one advantage. I'm not going to go for other much detailed advantages, but disadvantages, it definitely requires a good internet connectivity. Even we faced it. Even slight variation in internet connectivity will cause a lot of problem. There will be delay in communication, video may be blurred, and that is a complicated situation. And sometimes it requires a good hardware like camera, microphone, or good gadgets are required. And another disadvantage what I felt is some of this video conferencing tool required to be subscribed. Then only we can have a full-fledged application of, or full-fledged utilization of these video conferencing tools. So there are familiar video conferencing tools for us like Zoom, we have Google Meet, we have what you call Microsoft Team, we have WebEx from, Cisco's WebEx, then we have GoToMeeting or GoToWeb, etc. Then another option is teleconferencing, somehow not tried at a greater extent, in fact. So it is actually suitable for large groups, for conferences, discussions, etc. And you don't require any sophisticated high-speed internet. You can have a basic telecom network, but only thing is you have to enable the teleconferencing facility. But what is the drawback? It will not show the faces. So you may not have your faces or your opposite person faces to be seen. So there is no proper support for video-based interaction. Then another option is pre-recorded videos. Yeah, Pre-recorded videos are really helpful, especially if you're going for the flipped classrooms. Now, it really allows the person to record his lecture well in advance, and it can be edited and it can be shared to the student properly so that he can watch it at his leisure. He can revisit as and when it is required. So that is somewhat a great advantage for pre-recorded videos. Obviously, there is a disadvantage. The faculty has to spend sufficient time. He has to do it meticulously. He has to do the editing, the sound, background, everything has to be checked. So it should be in a professional way. So it takes a little bit time. And you need to, if you really have, basically you should have a good, what you call, you should have technological skills, so that these are the basic technological skills. You need not be a tech savvy really, but basic technological skills are essential. You need a laptop at least. Even I remember that my new generation kids, they don't require even laptops or desktop for doing the editing. They'll do it in a single mobile phone. So that is also possible. Now, what is the disadvantage? It do not support the live video interaction, but still interaction is made possible because we can supplement always by means of other channels. Like we can communicate them through WhatsApp, we can communicate them through the email, we can send them the text message, or we can keep a separate interactive session based upon the pre-recorded video session. So things are really possible. And really, personally, I really appreciate these pre-recorded videos, because it will never make us to cancel our academic sessions. Even if you go for course duty or valuation duty or other professional or personal duty, you will not suffer with your classrooms. So if you really plan it properly, that can really make things going at any condition. Then the social media groups like Facebook. I've seen people using Facebook groups, and off late I've seen people using Instagram groups. Like they create a closed group for that, and it is getting really popular. And it allows the closed group discussion and collaboration or discussion using text as well as multimedia communication mode. But what is the disadvantage? Again, it requires internet connectivity. And obviously, you require either a Facebook or Instagram or even Twitter, because Twitter is also getting really popular. Why? Because I've seen Twitter-based journal club activities. But again, those social media networks requires their subscription or accounts, proper account, login accounts. But again, somehow they are the social media platforms, and I don't really suggest them for what you call academia or scientific. Maybe my mindset has to be changed, but the discussion somehow seems to be informal, because in Facebook, as we know, in Facebook, Instagram, we are never formal. We are really informal person. So we have a different face totally in Facebook and Instagram. So even the discussion may sometimes go somewhat in informal way, and it requires a lot of moderation. So that is one concern I have. Then again, the safety related issue with the Facebook. It is a social media platform. YouTube is a social media platform. Even in YouTube, you can have the closed group discussion. The problem is always there is a safety threat in comparison with other platforms. Then comes the WhatsApp. See, WhatsApp was with us, but we never expect, personally, I never expect that can be utilized for education. Even in COVID time, I never expected this WhatsApp has got this much potential to be applied in what you call education purpose. I have seen my professional colleagues utilizing nicely the WhatsApp platform, but somehow I'm not a great fan of WhatsApp, because even in my mobile phone, I keep my WhatsApp notification off because of a lot of groups. Now, WhatsApp, not just WhatsApp, I should also highlight about the Telegram. I've closely seen my colleagues doing sharing lectures through WhatsApp and sharing classes through the Telegram platform, etc. Obviously, a lot of advantages are there. It is free of cost, no cost you need to pay, no subscriptions required as of now, I'm telling. Easy to access, highly popular instant messaging application it is. It allows simple and quick collaboration on individual as well as in the group level. You can have a group. I remember it's almost like 250 members in one group, I think so. Yeah. So you can have a group discussion. You can have an individual discussion through the text, through the multimedia files, etc. It also provides audio video conferencing capabilities. Okay. But again, there is limitations for that. Obviously, I'm not a great fan. I have never tried out this WhatsApp exclusively for my handling of my courses. Obviously, we have discussions with the students, one-to-one or group discussion, but not for full-fledged education purpose. I've never used it. Then a disadvantage, it requires internet connectivity as well as a good mobile phone. But as like your Facebook or like your social media platform, this WhatsApp and Telegram, the discussion may be slightly informal nature. That maybe if you are not worried about the formal and informal approach, then you can really have it. So it may need to be moderated, I believe. Then comes the web-based learning application, which I really support. It's a holistic learning experience. It gives you almost all the facilities what you are doing in real-time class. I believe that it gives you more facilities than what you can do in your real-time conventional classroom. Like if you take the example of Moodle learning management system, these are the example actually for web-based learning application, Moodle learning management system or Google Classroom or Edmodo, because these three I have used. There are a few more, I think ThinkEd, there is something called as Project. So, but I have been trying out these three like Moodle, Google Meet, and I was trying with Edmodo, at least for a few months to identify which may be the best one I can try out. So this gives a holistic experience. You can upload, share any learning material. You have an option for face-to-face interaction. You have the discussion platforms available. You can collaborate with the other lectures, other faculties associated with your courses within the same platform. So your student can submit the assignments, write the test, conduct the MCQs. You can have the evaluation, grading, whatnot. And the best part is everything is properly documented as per the IT Act. So that's the best way, and you can be completely paperless. And also you can combine or you can integrate the video conferencing tool for your web-based learning application. If you remember about Moodle LMS, Moodle LMS has got already integrated with the Big Blue Button, which is another open source video conferencing tool. And if you are really ready to pay for the subscription of Zoom and all, you can integrate the Zoom right into the Moodle LMS. So these are the common, again, it requires internet connectivity, a drawback, but still this is what I suggest. Actually, I will not suggest that go for one single tool. I will always suggest try out which is the best one which is the most convenient one ICT tool for you. Is it a simple SMS will do for you, or whether you really wanted a web-based learning application. But what I suggest is you try it out and try to use different tools and try to integrate it within one application. Like what I do is I basically use a web-based learning application. I use a Moodle and Google Meet, I should say. Then I try to integrate the video conferencing tool and pre-recording straight into this kind of this particular tool. This is how I try out and work with my classes, and I really feel it's the best. I mean, that may be an appropriate way. Again, opinion may differ. This is all my personal experience. Yeah. Is it clear? Am I audible? Can I continue? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible. It's very clear. Very clear, sir. Continue, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So even though we have so many applications, so many tools, so many platforms, but it's really challenging. In fact, this COVID era from March, it was challenging for everyone. But again, in education sector, the stakeholders really felt the heat. Let it be the faculties, let it be the students, let it be the parents, let it be the management of the institution, all face the heat. So platforms were there, but how to adapt it, that was the biggest concern. So challenges for faculties, I'll just brief. Again, I'm not going to in-depth all the challenges. You may be having more challenges than what I have suggested here, but I'm going to say the few one which I felt to be discussed here. So as a faculty, the major challenge was a sudden shift from the conventional offline teaching mode, which we all were comfortable, to a technology assisted online education, which was demanding for at least few faculties. I apologize to those people who have already adapted it long ago, but I'm talking about those people who might not have adapted or who are forced to adapt to this right from March 2020. So this shift from the conventional offline to technology assisted or ICT based online education was really demanding for many faculties, especially many of them were having limited awareness or limited exposure experience or limited skill in ICT based online education. And this limited awareness, limited experience, limited skill, and a short duration to shift from conventional to advanced ICT based education really produced a huge level of stress, at least on few faculties. And that stress might have reflected on the students' satisfaction and performance. Why I'm telling this, I have seen the situation where in a college where few faculties may be tech savvy, or they may be the early adapters, or they may be already might have already adapted this technology. But there may be a few section of faculties who may not be familiar with that. They will be happy with the conventional chalk and board kind of teaching. I'm not blaming anyone, but still that conventional mode of teaching or the classroom teaching. Now, sudden transition, what will happen is that other section will immediately transform into this ICT based, whereas the person with the conventional teaching might be struggling. And this struggle or this limited skill or limited awareness will reflect in his actual performance. The person who would have been a wonderful teacher in offline mode becomes a bad teacher in the online mode. Not because that fellow lacks knowledge on his course, no, but because of his limited skills or information or ability to handle the ICT based education made him a bad teacher. And that really affects the level of satisfaction for students, and even it may affect their performance. Then also the reported mental stress and other health issues among the student community was further aggravated, and that became a challenge for the mentors. That is a fact. See, by the time I started it in March or April, students had a lot of issues slowly getting developed. Like month of May and all, students were developing mental stress, health issues, because some of their parents lost their job and returned back. Some of them returned back from the Middle East. There was financial issues at the home. They couldn't afford a gadget. They couldn't afford an internet. It was giving them the mental stress. Probably the staff faculty was not listening to it at a greater level because there was not much of mentorship happening that level. So then student also had some barrier to disclose it with his faculty. So this mental stress, this health issue was affecting his academia, and these mental issues and health issues of the student was also a great challenge for the mentor or the faculty. That was one big issue which I faced in the month of April or May, where one of my students, few of my students had this issue, but they don't want to disclose it. Somehow, the response in the class was bad. The online sessions were not attended properly, and so probably at that time I was a bit adamant. So I was a bit strict and I was a bit harsh with them. But later, within a week, I got to know that they are facing some issues at home. So I had to talk to them a lot. I had to spend hours of communication, hours of counseling kind of activity I have to perform over the phone. Still over the phone, that is the problem. I'm not able to do them face to face, or physical interaction was not possible, which will give better response, I believe. But that was a challenging situation where you need to spend for hours, and some of them recovered from that issue, but some of them give me still the negative response. So this really affect me also as a faculty, and this is also one of the major challenge as a faculty I felt during the early stages of lockdown. Even the later stages of lockdown, I experienced it. Then inequality in online education. Inequality by all means is a big concern. Inequality, as I said, few faculties may be tech savvy, few faculties may be not at all familiar with the technology. Few faculties may be willing to spend time for learning the advanced ICT tools. Some of them may not be able to do it or not interested to do it. So what happens when such faculties are within one organization and receiving end, there are the students, they really feel the difference. So there is severe inequality by all means. Even in student side, there is inequality. Some of the students had the laptop. I'm not going to discuss it here much because this is for the faculty challenge. And some of the students had the laptops at their luxury, or some of them had just mobile phones. Some of them even did not have Wi-Fi connectivity at their home. So there is total inequality in online education. That was also causing stress, because you cannot give a uniform direction to the student. You cannot ask everyone to make a presentation and submit it, because he or she may not be having a laptop or a desktop, or he or she may not be experienced or skilled in these kinds of ICT based activities. So that inequality was sustaining, and it still persists, because we have conducted a lot of surveys, and since we have submitted for publication, and these all surveys reflected this inequality in online education. Then another concern, like if you say we have almost if you take the pharmacy as a group, we can see almost 3,000 odd faculties are available in India, and 60% of these faculties, majority of these faculties are either 30 or less than 30 years. The data may vary because I have read it somewhere. I don't remember where I read it. And what happens is we have a younger generation, but still they are having inhibition towards ICT based education. That's what data suggests. Means you are younger, you can be a quick learner, but you still show some sort of inhibition towards ICT. There is an investment on technology considered still as a burden. You don't want to spend on laptop. Means you may be having a laptop which you might have used when you're in your M-Farm days, giving a lot of hanging issues, a lot of trouble, but it was okay when you are doing your conventional classes, because you will go and connect it to your PPT and do it. But at this particular COVID era, where we are totally depending upon ICT based education, your laptop may not be suitable, but still you are having an inhibition towards ICT. You consider investment on technology as a burden. I cannot simply criticize the faculty for that matter, because during the COVID lockdown or COVID situation, we have seen a lot of job losses. We have seen a lot of issues like faculties were not paid appropriately. The payment salaries were delayed. And there was a lot of financial constraint also affecting the faculty. That also may be a reason they were not really motivated towards this ICT based education, or they might have shown an inhibition towards learning ICT, or they even thought considering that investing on technology is just a burden for them. So what I want to suggest is this less than 30 or 30-year younger this particular age group or younger generation is a great advantage for pharmacy education. In fact, we should make sure these 30 years, this younger generation shall be trained adequately in ICT tools, so that there should not be a situation that they start thinking about acquiring all this technology 10 years later. So that should not happen. And this inhibition towards ICT, the investment as a burden, or makes really a challenge for us. Then I suggested mentoring the students really declined. That was a great challenge, because in physical classes or the conventional classes, we had an very opportunity to observe the student very closely. If there is some issues observed or identified him, we used to have a personal interaction with him. We used to get the assistance of the other counseling people, and we get him assisted him to get out of the issues. So mentoring was really declined. And if you really check the mentoring activity you might have done for last 1.5 years, which may be considerably lesser than what you have done in the physical class, but actually mentoring is highly essential at this particular pandemic era. And that is really a challenging for us, because students attitude drops down, the interest drop downs, they have faces a stress, but still I couldn't do a proper mentoring for my student and help him to come out of that situation. So that is also a challenge. So I'm not discussing all the challenges, which is probably some of the challenges you might have experienced already, these challenges, and some of the challenges which I have not explained here, expressed here, you might have, or you have experienced, but I might not have explained it here. Yeah. Now, challenges faced by the students. So this sudden transition, as I said, as the faculty had this sudden transition from offline to online. So this sudden transition from offline to online education or ICT based education really parallel with the lack of electronic devices. So it is not possible that every student in our campus to have BPharm, or at the BPharm level at least, have a laptop. Some of them even doesn't own a mobile phone, like Android mobile phone. I have a classical example that one of my student, who was really excellent student, was using the mobile phone. He's in BPharm 7th semester, was using the mobile phone which was owned by his grandfather. So that was a situation. So there was lack of electronic devices. a great challenge for students. Some of them couldn't own it or couldn't afford it, especially to the girl children, especially those who are from conservative families, were not given access to the online, access to the what you call advanced devices. They were not allowed to have own what you call WhatsApp account. That still exists in this country. That is the reason. Then another challenge was poor network connectivity. Yes, that was a big concern. 4G is there, but is it there in the rural areas? No. So poor network connectivity was another biggest concern. And even if there is connectivity, there will be another challenge. There was another challenge which I faced during the early days. See, in the month of April or May, even the student had Wi-Fi connectivity at her home, but the problem was the BSNL Wi-Fi connectivity was damaged. But since it was lockdown situation, the BSNL people were not coming and repairing it. And what is the result? She couldn't attend the class. So she has to depend upon her mobile device, but mobile at her area, it was 2G connectivity. So that was the problem. So poor network connectivity, or even if connectivity is there, repair damages may have been happened, or some issues may be there, nobody is there to repair. That was another challenge which I faced during the lockdown situation, and it still persists. So why I'm telling, I've seen it, so I've experienced it. Then my next challenge was to how to overcome it. Then inexperience in ICT based system. Yes, you may be familiar, I may be familiar, but the student need not be familiar with it. But the student doesn't own a mobile, student doesn't own a laptop, you need to educate him. That was the biggest challenge which we might have faced. Means you need to train the student on ICT. You need to introduce him what is Google Classroom, or what is this, how you are going to communicate through ICT mode, how the Moodle LMS has to be worked, how your name has to be, her name has to be incorporated into it, how he has to submit the data, submit the files, how he can check. So there was case where the students was not having an email ID. Actually, there was a scenario, he or she had an email ID, but she doesn't know it. She was using an Android phone. She had an email ID, but somebody else has created the email ID. Somebody else has created a password, and she doesn't know what it is. So this was a scenario. This is really, really challenging. You are not at classroom. You are again training them to handle this ICT right from your home or right from a distance. So you are doing it, and it is also an exceedingly a challenging task for a faculty, and also a challenge for a student, because they may not understand what we are telling. So this is the problem which we faced at that time. Then inadequacy in ICT based education guidelines and policy. That was another tough scenario. See, even right now, do we really have adequate ICT based education guidelines from councils or AICT or our universities? I doubt. So mostly the institutions set the guidelines. Right now, at that early stage, there was no guideline. There was no policy how to attend the classes, what all should be done from a student's end, what all should be done from a faculty's end. This was a scenario in majority of institutions. And there was no safety guideline, how a student should utilize, what all safety precautions he should take, etc. was not available at that time. Even now, I'm doubtful how far we have advanced in developing an ICT based education guidelines or policy right from the top brass. So this is our biggest concern faced by the challenges faced by the students as well as the faculties. Then another issue was, of late, when we reached to 2021 and all, students were bored of learning online. And I really feel they lost the initial curiosity. It's like a child. If you give him a new toy, he'll be curious. Even we will be, if you get a new mobile, we'll be so curious to learn it. Then maybe in a 1 month's time, our curiosity will be lost. Similar situation. Initially, it is Zoom. The student was not knowing what is Zoom. Google Meet, oh, something special. This sir is something technologically advanced guy. So he was also curious, and he was also telling to his friends who are not familiar with Google Classroom, okay, see, we are doing in Google Classroom. Later on, down the lane, by November 2020 or 21st, they lost the online interest in online learning, lost their curiosity. Why I'm telling is, we have conducted a survey in Kerala and southern part of India, among the pharmacy students. Almost 600 samples were collected, and what we found was, they are really bored of online and education and lost the curiosity. There was one question which we quoted in that survey: if you are provided with online education again, whether you will be interested interested to join or whether you'll be interested to come out for the regular offline classes. They said, okay, we don't want to be in online, we'll prefer to come to the physical class. But again, there may be other factors, maybe the guidelines, inadequate guidelines, or the approaches which we adapted in the ICT based online classes may be the reason the students might have felt boring off. When we asked what is the reason you wanted to come back to the school or the college, that was really an attractive and the best answer I should share with you. I thought when we framed this question, what was in my mind was, okay, they wanted to spend time with their friends. No, the answer was they wanted to meet their faculties and interact, because they consider that is the best way to learn. And many of them, a large proportion, said they wanted to visit the library so that they can access the books, because they were not happy with the e-material, or maybe they are not happy with the way we shared the e-material or e-content. So that is an alarming situation. Why I'm telling, this is a challenge and we need to overcome it. The students are, I'm not saying that we should go back to conventional learning. I'm not a strong fan of it. I prefer the ICT based blended learning. So, but still students are bored of learning. That is a fact, and they lost the curiosity, and we need to address that issue. Now, the absence of technology to conduct the practical or skill-based courses on virtual platform was a big disadvantage for us. So that is another reason, another challenge what we are facing. If you take pharmacy, how far or how well we got technological assistance, I will say virtually less than 10%. Even if there are platforms, yes, it is available, or artificial intelligence or robotics are available, but how many colleges or how many institutions, how many universities can afford it or will be willing to install it there in campuses? So that is a big task for us. Then rescheduled examinations and uncertainty in conducting of end semester examination, or end term examination, or exit examination is also a big challenge for us. If you take KUHAS as a classical example, we have our 2017 BPharm batch who is supposed to complete their course by this time. But unfortunately, on last week only they entered their 8th semester. We had our MPharm admission, which was supposed to be done in 2020 August. They just entered their program in 2021 July. So there is a lot of uncertainty, lot of rescheduling. If there is a flood, if there is a pandemic, there is a quarantine issue, your exam gets postponed. So that rescheduling, further delaying, uncertainty in conducting the end examination really create a challenge for us. See, right now, there is a confusing situation in our university. Like we are supposed to have our even batch, but that is 8th semester BPharm. Right now we are having it. But along with that, we are going to have an odd batch. That is, our first semester students are going to be entering to the campus. This is going to be causing a huge stress on the faculty, actually. Like it may not be affecting students much, but for the faculty and administration is going to be a huge challenge, because a person will be flooded with so many courses. So such situation really challenging for us in the education sector. Then finally, the missing campus life produced immense pressure, immense mental stress among the student community as well as their mentors. Now, apart from that, these are the general things which I wanted to highlight. Now, as per the 2019 report by Department of Telecommunication, Government of India, 43,000 villagers are yet to be digitally networked. So it means basic infrastructure for ICT-based education is yet to reach to those remote educational institutions. Situation has improved. Yes, 2021, exact data I don't have, but a lot of improvement has been made, but still we lack. So education, what is the purpose? It should not be a biased one. It should be uniform. But that uniformity we may not be able to fulfill in ICT-based system. Now, population below poverty line is a big concern for India. So for those people who are below poverty, their basic needs are always food, clothing, and a shelter. That is their essential requirement than any kind of formal or informal online education. So that is also a concern. See, in spite of the provisions to attend the physical classes in schools, there are a huge section of population which is below poverty line are hesitant to send their kids to school because that will affect their livelihood. So what is the situation if you are implementing informal or a formal online education? You cannot afford to have a basic food, clothing. So situation has to change. Again, I say government is making every initiative to make it possible. Then the alarming increase in incidents of online harassment. That is a big concern which I faced during the sessions. Even now we face it. Online harassment, cyberbullying, blackmailing, profanity, data hacking, data leaks, website hacking, online phishing, whatnot. All kinds of things are happening. And I have seen a lot of incidents in last 1 year, even to a few of the people who are known to me, who are the faculties, whose laptops were hacked for the ransomwares, whose mobile phone was controlled by the unknown hacker. So what that was happening, their WhatsApp was controlled by somebody else. So this situation was causing a great threat for the faculties. In this condition, I want to highlight something else. I've seen most of the time, we faculties, at least we faculties will be taking note of it, that we have an email ID, right? Probably we may be having one email ID, main email ID, which we might have shared everywhere. We might have shared it as a primary email ID, which will be used as a primary email ID for banking purpose, for all official communication, etc. And I have seen the same email ID has been utilized for our Facebook account. Same email ID is utilized for our online classes. Same email ID is utilized for our mobile phones, etc. And which is really not advisable. I have seen another reason I'm telling why it is that is your primary email ID. That is our primary email ID, which we shared all to the officials and government and even for the banking purpose. And you are sharing it to the ICT platforms, you are sharing it to your social media, makes you at the brink of risk. So you are giving an entry for an unknown hacker who can reach all the way to your bank. So what I always suggest here is never use your primary email ID for these activities. Either use your professional, you create your own professional email ID, or you create your secondary email ID. Only that those email IDs shall be used for your ICT based classrooms, at least for your Google Classroom. Why I'm telling, imagine you got 100, another reason I'll tell you, you got 100 odd people in your class, and all will be enrolled to Google Classroom. And you might have used your primary email ID, which is attached to a Google Classroom. When you send an assignment or send a message, all the students will respond. They'll at least send you a thank you, madam, thank you, sir. So what will happen? All these linked messages will come to your inbox, which finally result in your inbox getting filled. That means your primary email ID inbox will be completely full. And we rarely have a habit of cleaning all these unnecessary fish emails. We don't do it. We are very lazy for that. So what will happen? Your official communication or very important communication will not reach to you because your inbox is full. So such situations are there. I just deviated slightly, but I'm just highlighting one issue. So it is always advisable to go for an alternative email ID, better understanding, then use it. So you can be safe, you can keep yourself safe from all these kinds of assessment. Always better to have a self-imposed restriction whenever, or self-imposed boundary whenever handling with an online system. So these incidences, if you really, if we really further highlight, our National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, has said that in India, there was almost 500% spike in cybercrime, and that all happened during the COVID era. Means we all were either in YouTube, we were all either in the Google Meet, or we were in the Zoom or somewhere else, and we have opened our doors and done the activities. So this is, but what I want to highlight is this is a big challenge, but we can still overcome it. Now, let us move on. So pandemic may stay, or situation may stay, or floods may come, but we need to move on. That is my policy. So that should be our policy. So I believe that should be an approach for that. So transition between the online and offline shall be very quick. Means today the pandemic, tomorrow the pandemic may get over, so something else may come, or someday the floods may come, sometime the hartal may come. So it doesn't mean we should miss our class. So don't think that this is done only for the pandemic. No, this is for the future. So this is to this will definitely help us to continue with our learning process. Our learning is never going to be stopped. So there should be a quick transition between online and offline. There shouldn't be a time lag which you should experience. So we must adapt the technology at the earliest. And also, whenever we are going for an online classes, like especially if you're going for a live interactive session or if you're going for a flipped classroom, we should have a proper planning and also pre-class planning and also an excellent post-class analysis. So I will suggest we should go for at least something called as BOPS. BOPS means BOPPS. What B means bridge in, means how we should be connected to the class must be planned by ourselves. O means we must be clear about the learning outcome. Whatever time we spend, we must have a clear planning what kind of learning outcome we are going to expect. And always there should be a proper pre-assessment before we go for a class. Then participation, how we are going to engage our students during the session must be planned. It is not a conventional mode of teaching. It is an online mode of teaching. You may not be monitoring what all people are doing during your classroom. Now there are 85 odd people are attending. I am not in a position to monitor everyone. So, but still I must have a planning to keep the people engaged. Obviously, I should have a planning what kind of post assessment I'm going to carry out. It is must for an online education, ICT based education. It's not that you deliver and we deliver and just vanish, not possible. There may not be any learning outcome possible in that condition. So post assessment also must be planned. Then finally, I must have a planning for the summary, that is BOPPS. Summary means I must have a planning how I'm going to how I'm going to connect this information with my future learning activities. So this kind of BOPS or BOPPS, that is bridge, learning outcome, pre-assessment, participation, post-assessment, and summary must be planned prior to an online classes. Then always go for post-class analysis. Post-class analysis doesn't mean we just carry out an attendance. I've taken attendance. I used to give a roll call. We can definitely do it. And there are attendance tracker, softwares also available. I've seen people carrying out, taking the reports of Moodle classroom and checking whether he has accessed the class, etc. That we can carry out, no doubt. But still, we should have a proper post-class analysis. Means I should have proper planning what kind of post-class analysis I'm going to carry out, whether I can carry out an MCQ, whether I can carry out an interactive session with my student for at least about 10-15 minutes, which is remaining after my interactive session or my classroom session. If you are sending a recorded class, please have a MCQ based assessment or ask them to complete an assignment and submit. So this pre-class planning and post-class analysis will really help us to keep the students engaged, keep them interested in the activities. Then always I prefer to go for a kind of blended learning. It should not be just the communication. No, I should integrate with an attractive or interesting videos. I should have interesting PPTs. I should integrate the assessment. I should make them to submit the reports and just keep them engaged. Now, here I want to highlight something from Professor Dr. M.K.C. Nair, sir, who was our former Vice Chancellor. I remember he has written in a leading paper, that is Malayalam Manorama, last year when our classes were supposed to restart through the online mode. He has written a statement that the online classes shall be fixed for 3 hours in a day maximum. But it doesn't mean after the 3-hour session, you should let your student or let your kid go to bed or play, watch TV. No. Make sure that you ask your kid, or the faculties should make sure that students should carry out some sort of activity related to the morning session during the afternoon session. Like morning session, the online classes will go. Afternoon session, at least till 4 o'clock, he should be engaged with the activities based upon the morning academic session. So reason what he said, see, the student in online may be spending only 3 hours. So remaining hours, he'll be just enjoying himself. So it creates a big shift in his regular activities, or his his system, which was followed over the year, which he or she may follow in later half of his academia. So we should keep them engaged. So why I'm highlighting it here, Dr. MKC Nair sir is a very leading, a world-renowned child counseling expert. So he has suggested, okay, you keep the online session for 3 hours or 4 hours, but keep them engaged for remaining 2 hours, but don't push them for attending whole day online session, which I also don't suggest. Then also bring in the concept of joy of learning and joy in learning. So you may be doing it in your conventional classroom, but sometimes it may not be possible. You may not have tried it in your regular classroom. So that makes them really engage. That makes them focus on the academia, what you are carrying out, what the classes which you are carrying out during the online session. Now, you can have some kind of role plays, like if you are conducting the quizzes, you can really bring in the elements like Kaun Banega Crorepati or KBC element. You can have a face-to-face quiz session, let others all attend. You call up one person out of them, fastest finger. It really makes time. Obviously, it requires a lot of our involvement, our participant. We also should be motivated. Like we should be motivated. We should be happy to doing it. And that kind of role play can make a big change in the attitude of the student. Let it be in the B farm, or let it be in the M farm, or let it be in the farm D. This will bring the change. Then I have heard one madam saying, a leading faculty, a professor from, I think, ICT Mumbai, madam was telling in one of the sessions that she has conducted a dance step. She asked the students to plan a dance step through which they will explain the granulation process. I don't know how she has done it, but it's quite innovative, because what reason she said the students were bored of already the granulation. Being a statistics person, I know teaching granulation is boring and students will get really bored of. So teaching it in online platform, such a dry area, she thought, okay, why can't you try out a dancing step? I bet the student will never forget about the granulation process, and she has done it in her institution. Then also you can plan some drama. Actually, it's possible, it's not impossible. We can really work out on dramas. I'll give you a classical example here. I started my career with a pharmaceutical company way back in 2003. 2002, 2003, and I was working as a product manager with a company in Mumbai. So at that time, my company had only one molecule. We had one molecule, that is simvastatin. And that was the era when atorvastatin was catching the market, and our company had no plans to launch the atorvastatin. They were still saying Simva is better than atorva. So all the strategies we tried, we shared the leaflets, we conducted the CMEs, but the questions were raised. So no curiosity was possible among the physicians. They were all supporting atorvastatin. I can't blame them, because atorva was giving better response. So finally, our PMT team had a discussion. We thought of conducting a drama. Drama was like this, like we will invite the physician, and it is like a courtroom drama. So we'll have a judge in judge attire, that will be a physician, and we have an advocate whose client is simvastatin, and another opponent, that is an advocate for atorvastatin, our opponent's company. All will be our own people, our own marketing people. So we'll have all our scripts written where we are going to highlight the pluses of simvastatin with the evidences, because in court you need to produce the evidences, where the opponent will be countering our arguments. So finally, the judgment has to be given by the physician, and it really worked well. Actually, physicians felt quite curious about this attitude or this particular strategy of a company to bring in drama. So similar things can be brought in, especially in the people who are involved in pharmacology or any segment. You can create a drama. It is like that. You need to be just innovative. You should be a little bit creative. So a lot of creative thinking is what really requires at this stage. So again, I say we can't simply blame the students for not to be attentive, missing the classes, going under the stress. So we ourselves have to take some responsibility. I feel that we need to groom the teacher. I need to groom myself. I need to make a self-assessment myself. I need to, train myself. I need to improvise myself. That is what my policy, I believe. So I believe that it should not be in online. It should not be simply the teacher's presence. No, it should be teaching presence. In the sense, you must ensure a lot of cognitive presence, and also you must have a lot of social presence. That must be done during your online sessions. So for that, to have a lot of teaching present than just a teacher's present, you must have a proper course design. University has given us a course. Yes, their responsibilities, or PCA has drafted a course. I have a lot of objection with the course. As earlier, one of the sir has discussed, that university has given something, an objective is vague. I fully agree with that, because there is no learning objective. The learning objective has got clarity, lack of clarity. There is no learning outcome, and learning outcome may not be matching with the learning objective, course learning objective. There is no program learning outcome is given. So there is definitely issue with that, but still we can modify, we can improvise through our own way. So we must create something like a course design of our own, because we are not in a Western university where we will create the syllabus for our course, because I have experienced it. I have created a course syllabus for 2 or 3 courses. So that is not possible for us. We have under one umbrella and we have to do it. So, but still we can modify the course design, how we are going to implement it. And we need to facilitate the discourse. So that can be done. And how we are going to do the instructions. So these things can really make the teaching presence felt in a classroom. It is applicable for offline, but definitely applicable for online. So it is not that you become a strict teacher with what you call adamant that I had it. People even the faculty who has introduced me, Prasina, maybe she might have liked my teaching, but definitely she will say, okay, I was quite strict guy. But during the online, I have to transform myself. I cannot say that you should not talk, you should not laugh, you should not smile. No, nothing like that. You give that liberty. And obviously, you must have the knowledge. Definitely, we'll have the knowledge, but the skill is also important. So knowledge and skill, not just in your course, you must have the knowledge. We must have the knowledge and skill to adapt to these ICTs, because ICT can really solve a lot of our issues. So we must get ourselves trained in ICT based what you call tools. We must have, learning is never stopped anywhere. Anybody can have an exposure in ICT. It is just the interest, just the curiosity we should show. We can ask the help of our colleagues who are good at it, or we can also look at the YouTube channels, which gives fantastic opportunity for us to get exposed to these ICT tools. Then communication action shall be taught, not just for the faculty, even for the students. We should have a transparent communication. That is very important in ICT. ICT is always based on information technology, and information technology, no evidences can be removed from anywhere. So it becomes an extra pressure. So, but still, I believe we can be a lot more transparent. Our communication should be very clear, and it should reach to the student on time or before time. So like if you're conducting a test, how we are going to conduct the test, what should be the ethical guidelines, or what should be the guidelines you are following for your test if your institution is not providing it. Then how you are going to, what all topics you are going to ask, put it across in proper words, in proper communication, and also if possible give the rubrics, how we are going to assess the paper. So all these things should be given to them well in advance, because that is essential. The transparent communication, clear communication, loud communication is required, and also the action should be there. And also we also should train them to communicate in return. It is not that, it's like in conventional classroom, if you ask them, nobody will answer. No, here the communication should come from their end. There should be, you should talk to them, you should train them, you should give them the confidence that to give communication, have an action in return. So that should be there. And also students shall be our collaborator. In ICT, everywhere is our collaborator, but in ICT, it is very important. I felt the students shall be our collaborator. And in fact, when we are considering as a collaborator, we must have a discussion, thorough discussion with them, because they are really intelligent. What I felt was, when initially I was introducing these ICTs in my academia or my profession, initially I did not discuss it much, but later I had a discussion with my PG scholars. I had discussion with my UG students, and they're so creative. Some of them are really fabulously intelligent. They'll give you some fantastic inputs, tips, which we can adapt to into our academia or into our ICT tools, so that learning becomes a lot more entertaining, a lot more encouraging, a lot more interesting and informative. So I always believe just the content is not enough in online. You have the content, our slides are filled with content or packed with the content, not just content. You should have the creative thinking with your content. We must have a constructive thinking element with our content when we are doing an online education. That is online, because we may not be facing him directly. So content must have a creative thinking element left behind. Content must have a constructive thinking element behind. And definitely the analytical reasoning element should also be included. That is possible when we are working in with that direction. You can bring in the elements like PBL into your content. You create the questions in that direction. Your slides should have certain element which will force the student, or which will make the student to think and get back to you with his queries. That's how we initiate the communication, we initiate the action. Simply if we simply blast everything, give everything filled with the contents in the slide, I don't think there is going to be any sort of creative thinking or constructive thinking or analytic reasoning happening anywhere. Even it should be adapted. What we are adapting in offline classes, we should have this kind of elements, but we may not be having it. But in online, it's necessary. In ICT tools, it is necessary to have good content with your materials, e-material. So in ICT classrooms, I should say, we must be in a different mood, or we must change ourselves. Accept distraction. We should not feel angry. You should not be a teacher with a stick in the hand, shout at him, remove him from the classroom. No, accept the distraction, warn him, give him a communication, give him a strong, clear communication. Accept new ideas with the student, discuss with the student, because they'll give you fantastic ideas. Because I really experienced it. I have changed myself a lot over the last 1.5 years in my ICT class. Even though I was adapting ICT for probably from 2017. First, I was exposed in 2016. 2017 onwards, I was simply trying the ICT in my academic courses at least, and my students were trained in that. We were simply a completely paperless I was simply a paperless course coordinator. So this was the activities we were doing. But initial stages, I was reluctant to have a discussion. Initial stages of video conferencing time also, I was video conferencing based classes which I was conducting in the early stages of COVID. I was quite reluctant to have a discussion. But later I felt these are the people who receives us, or who receive our message. So I should talk to them. They are our customers in that way. It's a marketing way. So they gave us a lot of inputs, insights, how we should change, what they felt. So a lot of surveys I have conducted, feedbacks in my 17-year career or 18-year career. I think I have rarely taken as feedback, never taken as feedback. But in COVID era, I have taken several feedbacks on my activities, how I should change, because I was not knowing. Those students were not with me. I could not ask them. If I asked them publicly, they will not answer. So I'm conducting independent survey, and that really helped. So I will say it is not the institution which should conduct the survey. Even the faculties must conduct the survey. We must have a self-study element with us. We must improvise ourselves. We are not just improvising ourselves as a faculty, we are improvising ourselves as a person. Even the techniques or technology which we learned with our experience can be utilized in our own children's case back at home. Or see, this is what happens. So always will show the willingness to adapt the new modes. It's not that I'll only go the flipped classroom, I'll only go with the conventional classroom, I'll only go with WhatsApp. No, try out the different modes, adapt the new modes. We don't know which is the most suitable one for our style of teaching or our course. So adapt the new mode, that is also required. So what I simply suggest, have a creative, analytical and innovative pedagogy of learning. So terms may look for some it may look complicated, some way it may look very simple. But if those two things, it is really complicated, no, it is just practical experience which we need to try out. Practically we need to try out and we need to learn it. It is not that somebody can teach you a creative, analytic and innovative pedagogy of learning. I don't believe in that. It's such a boring session when somebody teaches you the pedagogy of learning, Bloom's taxonomy, etc. It is so boring for me. But when you really try out in your own courses, it really creates a lot of curiosity and interest, and we will be striving to move forward. So even though we said a lot of challenges, our students, if you ask in Kerala, mobile shortages, company, associations, professional, political bodies are collecting funds, sharing mobile phones, network issue, one boy is climbing over the tree, lot of issues. And we always say about the negativities. Whenever we share something new, first thing you expect is criticism. First thing is you talk about is the obstacle. It is not possible. You will never ever try it, but you will simply say it's not possible. At that stage, I just want to share the story from J&K, that is Jammu and Kashmir, which I read, I heard, which I felt really an interesting and inspiration for me. See, unlike other states, top Jammu and Kashmir, especially Kashmir, is a volatile place. We know that. Long time conflict, net connectivity issues really hamper the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, isn't it? We enjoy the 4G. Tomorrow we may enjoy the 5G, but because of the terrorism, the government has restricted the 4G. Sometimes they totally disconnect the internet. Don't we know that we should know that there are also children right from the kindergarten to the higher university of J&K, Jammu and Kashmir University. There are advanced researchers. And believe me, they are doing much better than us. These obstacles, these challenges, they are taken, they are accepted, and they started moving forward. Still, I'm not saying entire J&K is doing, but at least J&K University has made a humble attempt to utilize the ICT-based tool. They started in 2010 with the Orkut. Orkut, we remember, predecessor of Facebook. Facebook killed the Orkut. So they had a closed group in the Orkut, and they started sharing the e-tutorial because the classes were missing because of the heavy conflict, terrorism, and internet issues. It's not internet issues, the snowfall, etc. But they started sharing e-tutorials, material supplemented with animated videos, short videos. And university tried through the networking. They tried to create an internet group. They created a link. They created this internet group and shared the link of the lectures to their students. So what it helped them is the students could listen the videos or watch the videos, as Unikishan sir, of the reputed teachers through the online platform. So online lectures were reaching to them. They were getting real international exposure, which probably the rest of the country was also missing. At least some section of the universities or the faculty institutions were missing at those days. But in 2020, when the pandemic came, they did not waste much time because they were already exposed to the ICT-based education. They shifted to Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, etc. And they even integrated this pharmacy-related program, especially the pharmacology lab tutorials, practicals through the virtual platform. The softwares were used, they integrated with their courses. So that's how they carried out the activity. They simply resorted themselves to the blended learning, and really learning made enjoyable. And the outcome, one of the major outcome of this ICT-based education, adapting the ICT-based education in the early days and training the students and faculties in ICT-based education really helped them to create platform for international fellowships and sponsorships. So funded admissions at international universities were made possible for the students from J&K. And a lot of courses they do conduct through the Google Meet nowadays, and also a lot of faculty development programs they conduct through these platforms. So what I'm going to highlight is the state which has got a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure, in terms of internet connectivity, etc., is really able to do wonders. So why can't we do it, or why we can probably do much better than them? So what are the government intervention toward digital education? So has made a lot of initiative to bring in ICT or digital education for the public, that too free of cost. One of the major one is study webs of active learning for young aspirant minds, that is SWAYAM, which is an open, massive open online courses or MOOC platform launched in 2017. And in 2017, I was really fortunate to enroll myself for the only one course in pharmacy, that is industrial pharmacy by Ajay Simati sir. And I still remember those online courses, and I never miss Simati sir's presentation. He's such a fabulous teacher. And probably that really helped me or inspired me to implement SWAYAM among my students. I used to tell each and every of my postgraduate students, as well as fourth year B.Pharm students, about SWAYAM, and I make them I tell them or inform them about the SWAYAM courses and what is the need of doing it, what is the advantages of doing it. I'm not saying that whether they are doing it because I couldn't compel them, but definitely those students have done it, they really benefited out of it. So SWAYAM, many of us are familiar with it, but it started in 2000. Then SWAYAM Prabha again started in 2017 with the Bhaskar Acharya Satellite Application Center, Gandhinagar, again in association with ECIL Hyderabad. Then you may be knowing about the National Digital Library of India, NDLI, which was started in 2018 with the IIT Kharagpur assistance. Then there is National Academy Depository, NAD, which was started in 2016 in collaboration with InflipNet. Actually, you know about the InflipNet, actually. That is Information Library Network, and many of us will be familiar with it, and NDML and CVL. So it is actually a digital repository of all the academic awards provided by the academic institutions in India. Then there is something called as Virtual Lab, which is initiated on pilot base by Ministry of Human Resource and Development, Government of India. Then there is eYantra, actually. That is actually an initiative under National Mission on Education through Information and Communication Technology, this NMEICT program, which actually beneficial for engineering or those who are interested in robotics and machine learning, because it gives the insight into robotics, into engineering education, and also give hands-on application for mathematics, computer science, and engineering principle. Then one best initiative by Government of India is Campus Connectivity, a pan-India program, which was enabling the institutions or universities connected with high-speed internet, that is 1 Gbps to 20.5 Mbps internet connectivity, and it was giving Wi-Fi networks to optical fiber. Then another initiative is Talk to a Teacher, digital education platform developed by IIT Mumbai under National Mission on Education, using especially a tool developed by Amrita University, Kochi. eShod Sindhu, again a digital education initiative by MHRD, InflipNet, Gujarat, which actually gives access to 15,000 international electronic journals and ebooks to all higher education institutions in India, in the country. So eAcharya, another integrated e-content portal. It is the official repository of NMEICT, e-content stored, processed, preserved at InflipNet Center, Gujarat. Then comes the free and open source software for education, FOSSEE, which is an IIT Mumbai sanctioned digital project, which really supports the open source software in education centers through OpenForm, DWSIM softwares, and it enables the delivery of your e-material, tutorials, your textbook companions, and awareness workshops, etc. And this FOSSEE is really great because it is really promoting the R program softwares like R language. It's a beautiful open source software which can really do the task which normally has to be done with so many expensive subscription-based software, like those who may be doing the statistics or those who may be doing the optimization in pharmaceutics, etc. Can really try out R-based software, because R can be, it's a free of cost. You can freely download it, and you can do these optimization activities. Even kinetic modeling, I have not tried hand on it. Kinetic modeling can be done through this R programming, and you need not purchase an expensive subscription-based software, which is even listed in our university syllabus. Okay, then comes the eVidwan also there. Then eKalpa is also there. So eVidwan, eKalpa, and all of them are expert database. E-learn content are available with them. Then finally, the central cloud infrastructure, which is getting underway, which is called as Badal. Actually, it is actually under NMEICT, and IIT Delhi is going to set up this 24/7 data center, which is a cloud-based system called as Badal, and which is going to store the e-content and videos of eAcharya. So Government of India is doing a lot of initiative, I should say. And apart from that, those who wanted to have exposure to the what you call online education or improve their skill, there are a lot of paid or the subscription-based platforms available, like Coursera, or you can go for Udemy, you can go for Upgrad. So there are a lot of options these days available, but I will say the Swayam is such a fantastic one. I always insist to my PG students to do Swayam courses for research methodology and biostatistics. Such a fabulous videos or information is available, which will really help them to plan their research properly. I suggest them in the first semester itself, but somehow many of them are hesitant because of their heavy academic response, which they claim. Okay. So what is my experience? I just want to share it at ICT at CPS. So I started actually learning management system, experimenting with learning management system in 2017. I should say I implemented it. Blended learning system was which I adapted. I was trying with Google Classroom and Edmodo at a trial basis. Then finally fixed with Google Classroom, which I felt more convenient. So I just introduced it to a trial batch, and it was really helpful, and collected the user review. I conducted a lot of surveys. Then once it is finalized, then I was going to train them At that time, there was physical classes possible. I was training the students in the classroom how to use it. What are the safety things? What should I have shared them a written down user guideline. I have given them a strict guideline for maintaining the safety in the internet space, web space. Also given them a guideline, ethical guideline on conducting test papers, because that was not existing that time. How we should, what ethical aspects, what all rules and regulation we should maintain if I'm conducting online tests, etc., which was really helpful during the COVID era. So in blended learning, what I was doing is I was doing the conventional teaching in the classroom, giving my lectures, conducting everything. Then all those related activities like test, assignment, what you call quizzes, etc., I just shifted to the online platform like Google Meet, Google Classroom. So benefit was my department from 2017, or personally my office from 2017, became completely paperless. And the best part was I had everything documented. Even if you ask me, I can share you the document which was available, which was submitted in 2017 for my UG and PG, whatever my class assignments were going. Then April 2020, the scenario changed. It was COVID, and it was easy transition for me because I was already comfortable with my Google Classroom. Then I just need to modify it slightly. Then I was trying out with the video conferencing tool. It happened in March itself. We experimented with Zoom, GoToMeeting, Google Meet. Somehow I felt convenient with Zoom, and I fixed Zoom. Again, I had a lot of trial sessions with my students, few batch of students who may be technically well organized. I identified them, trained them, I interacted with them. So it was like a blended learning and hybrid learning. Means I was using a lot of online as well as offline activities, because we used to visit the college at that time. I had to go to college during the lockdown also. Then I had my PG students working there. So I had blended learning, hybrid learning. I was using both. So a lot of e-material, handouts, videos, animation, test quizzes, tests as well as MCQs, assignments were conducted. But at that time, I already told you, internet and Wi-Fi issue was a big concern for me. But what I have done was, those who could not access my live session, because I was going more with the live session, I was saving those recordings. And thanks to my daughter who taught me how to do editing, because she wanted to start a YouTube channel like anybody in the country. So she taught me. I just offered, you help me with editing, because I was not knowing how to do the editing job. So she helped me with editing. So I helped her to start a YouTube channel of her own. Then I used to edit my video, enhance the video clarity, because you cannot simply send it to them. So I was editing, whichever is not required, I was just cutting. You need to spend the time, and I was shared only to those who missed the classes. That was my adamant nature. Maybe I should not have done it. I just shared to those students who missed it. I had to doing a lot of compression work so it can fit into mobile phone. So you cannot simply share the huge file size to mobile phone. That is also a concern. So even my technological skill was improving a lot. So then it moved on. So by 2020, university also came out. 2020 July, it was a monsoon season, and university came out with a suggestion that we should go with Moodle LMS. So they suggested Moodle LMS. I was also happy because I experienced Moodle at 2016 or 17 era, but the server issue and the hosting issue was a problem. So I went with Genomio web hosting facility, and I started my Moodle. So monsoon was a big threat. So students were facing a problem in interacting live session. And another problem what we faced was we were having COVID related duties. So my 7 days I'll be doing the COVID duties. So I'll miss the class session. So what I had done, then I went for flipped or HyFlex learning. HyFlex I was doing with the PG students. They were available in the college. Flipped, what I was doing was I was pre-recording my classes. I was sitting in front of the desktop. I was recording the classes, editing it, sending it through my Moodle along with the quizzes, test, assignment, handout, e-material, which was validated, checked and validated by me. And I was fixing the time. This is the time schedule which you should watch. But actually, I was doing my duty, but they were attending my classes. And monsoon threat, internet issues were there. Because of this flipped pre-recorded classroom, I could resolve that crisis. None of my classes got affected. I should say the NDDS session, which I was handling from July, I could finish exactly by November with around 45 sessions. And it was on time session. So then HyFlex, I was working with the PG students. I was going to the college when I was going to the colleges, there were a few people available in the classroom. So we used to run the live classroom. We used to have the classroom active regular class. But simultaneously, the Zoom or Google Meet was activated, and those who were not physically present in the classroom, because of the safety issues and COVID protocol has to be followed. We cannot fill everyone in the 10 students in the classroom. We were arranging in such a way that they were attending from the hostel or they were attending it from the home, comfort of their home. So I will say that the change in approach really helped me out. So I adapting to the new mode, willingness to adapt to the new mode, and willingness to learn the ICT, and what I practiced in 2017, I modified it, I changed it to fit into the 2020 scenario. 2020's March scenario was different from July scenario. I had to make the changes. So again, I made the changes. I should say it really helped me a lot. So that is the reason I'm saying time is come. We need to upgrade and we need to move on. So believe me that industry is shifting completely to online mode, to end-to-end automation. It was a time earlier when man was giving command to the machine, isn't it? And we was waiting for the next process. Then later, machine was telling the man that there is an error, you correct it. So again, man has to go and the person in charge of the machine has to. So machine was given alarming sound. If you check the word will, if you type something in word will give you an error. So error message that you have typed a wrong spelling, wrong grammar. So similarly, machine will give an alarming sound, beep sound. So man has to go and correct it. But now it is the era of machine doing auto correction. It is a time where we are seeing the autopilots for the cars. It was there for the flight. It is a time we are talking about the ADAS, that is Advanced Drivers Assistance System, for our vehicles like what you call XUV 700. Latest vehicles come with the ADAS. So it will help the driving more comfortable, more safer. So it is a time when companies like companies in US are integrated to FDA for remote interactive evaluation. Means everything is getting automated. Everything is based upon artificial intelligence. Everything is shifting to the robotics. I will not say we all should do it, but at least what I am going to suggest is we have to accept the situation and we have to adapt to the technology, which can really help us to improvise at individual capacity and also improvise the learning outcome for our student. So based on this, I will say it is a time to be time to become normalization. So what is normalization is a big question. So there is a paper by Bax, very famous paper, where he said this is a stage when a technology is completely invisible and hardly you can recognize that technology is existing in you. So you can take it for granted it in every day. So that is what Bax says. And it is not easy for having a normalization phase. You need to go through 7 stages. Like you must be an early adapter. You must have ignorance. You must have something called a try one stage. You must have a stage called as try again stage. Then there is a stage of fear. Then there is a stage of normalizing. And finally, there becomes a normalization. Now, early adapter, you may be knowing some of your faculties may be tech savvy. They'll be simply adapting the technology. The campuses are there which adapt all the technology, like Manipal, like National. They have adapted the technology at the earliest. So maybe out of curiosity or maybe out of the need. But still, there is something called as ignorance exists. So most people are skeptical or ignorant of its existence, that there are many people who still believe that Google Classroom is not required. There are still people who say that Zoom is not safe, WhatsApp is not safe, or this situation is going to change and we are going to go back to the conventional mode of teaching. So there is skepticism, there is ignorance still exists. That is another stage of before becoming normalization. Then there is something called as try once. People try it out for once, but reject it because of early problem. You may work on Zoom and suddenly I have seen it. This is not possible for me. I can't do it. Moodle, when I was trying to help the many people, they were telling it's not possible, it's so complicated. I'll go back with Google Classroom. It is good for me. That is best. And there was a huge argument that there is an argument between the lovers for Moodle and lovers for Google Meet. Both were Google Classroom. They were arguing each other. So it doesn't appear to add anything relative advantage for you, because that is what happens. People try it, you face early problem, you drop it. And you also think that the person may think that it doesn't have any advantage from the existing mode or existing approach. But still, somebody will tell them it works. Their close friend who might have also experienced this try once attitude will come and tell you, see, actually it works better than Google Meet or Google Classroom. You just try it again. So tell them it works. So they again try it. And they find out that it has some advantage actually, but still there is something called as fear. So most people start to use it, but there is a fear that somebody may hack me, somebody may hack my computer, somebody may hack my this thing. There are many people who doesn't use WhatsApp, you know that, because of fear. So there is a fear. Then there is slowly a stage called as normalizing. Gradually you see that something is getting normalized, and there reach the normal state, normalization, where the technology is so integrated into our life that it becomes invisible. You will not realize the technology is actually existing in my day-to-day life. This is called as a phase of normalization. And I believe in this ICT based online education era, based on our COVID lockdown experience, this normalization should reach faster. And I personally suggest few strategies to conduct this online education, or which I felt based on my experience. So I always say sudden switching to online education create lots of problem. Imagine you got a Google Meet, you got a Moodle LMS, you flood with the content. Lot of users may be there. Finally, your system will crash. Students will call you, sir, I can't access your video. I cannot download the video. I cannot enter the site. I faced it in Moodle when I was initially dumping with the information. So I used to get a lot of calls. Then I realized, okay, it's not possible because I am using a what you call third-party web hosting. I need to understand the position of my platform. Similarly, the teaching content should be framed in such a way that it should not cross 30 minutes. Go to the maximum of 45 minutes. I used to flood content video conferencing for 1 hour, 2 hours, and I regret for that now. I used to share the content for 1.5 hours at a stretch. Imagine I am spending it for 1 hour. The heat of my screen is troubling me. So it's ridiculous what I have done with my students. So I restricted in the July onwards, I should say, there is a mistake I learned. I modified, I restricted to 40 minutes, 20 minutes, I'll give some activities, some kind of involvement, not the video recording. So this will not cause a fatigue on students who are watching the videos on the online platform. Then delivery content for faculties. The faculty must be trained prior to initiate any online teaching. Student also must be trained. That is what I want to say. There should be proper orientation given to each and every student about the ICT based online. You can't simply expect that student is well-versed. No, a faculty is well-versed. No, give proper training, proper orientation, timely updates for the faculties as well as for the students. So gives clarity in communication, really helps to impart the innovative techniques. So this is a responsibility. There is an individual responsibility. There is a responsibility from the side of the colleges, from the administration, from the HODs or the principal who may take note of it. Class in charges or the faculties may take note of the students, whether they are adapted to this technology. So that is how it should work out. Interactive animations, presentations, games should be involved in the teaching. That's what I said. Boredom of continuous talking should be avoided. Now I'm killing you people. I'm boring you people with a lot of talking because I wanted to introduce some animation, but the time limit is 1.5 hours. So I have to avoid it. So I will say for the student side, we have to introduce it. We should avoid the continuous talking. Make the concept of joy of learning and joy in learning. We also are human beings. We also should enjoy what we are doing. So that's what I'm telling them. The course material should be made available prior to the online session. I do it. I send my material prior to the session. I send the reading material prior. Then I share my pre-recorded videos later on time during the class hour. Or I share whatever material possible. I send them across. So student also, it is not that you simply send them. No, you make sure that they read it prior to attending to the online session, because online has got a lot of obstacles, the clarity issues, the communication issues. So that can be overcome by these approaches. So in online session, faculty should hold a discussion session on the topic which was uploaded. That is mandatory. So even if I upload a pre-recorded session during my duty, or when I'm not available and all, I used to hold a weekly online interactive session with my students. So I used to discuss with them what is required, what is not required. This is all I was not practicing really, but I really expect a better learning outcome from my effort for my students. So I was conducting a lot of interactive sessions every week whenever I'm going for a recorded session or material sharing session. But major issue, internet connectivity. It should be addressed by the telecom companies, or the government should take measurement to develop the infrastructure modifications, bring in more open Wi-Fi areas. High-speed internet access should be made available in public place and village. And also imagine what we will do with 1 GB data. Most of us will depend upon 1 GB data provided per day, provided by Jio or Airtel or BSNL or Idea. It is not sufficient. So government also should ensure to bring in affordable data packages which should last for at least 4 hours per day of live interactive session. So it should be communicated to the government authorities or telecom department to bring in such strategies. And also government must ensure uninterrupted power supply, which is mandatory for online education. I cannot do an interactive session without power. So that is also required. University also should conduct developmental activities, learning activities for both faculties and students. They should conduct online workshops, trainings, conferences in a frequent way, because it should really help us to upgrade. And also university must include it mandatory in calendar of events, which we don't see in our university. At least we should suggest it to the university to bring in the calendar of events. Students should be exposed to MOOC, and university should make a policy that this Swayam based program at least should be included as a co-curricular activity, where they should be awarded with necessary credit points. So this will really help us to improvise the situation. And also university must help, or the institution must help or create a policy where they can provide the gadgets like laptops at an affordable rate to the faculties and students. It is possible. Institutions can discuss with the hardware providers or directly with the companies if there is a large order, and they can bring in some financial scheme for the students and faculty. So everybody can have their own laptop. Everybody can afford their own this thing. Even they can discuss with the companies, for telecom companies, to provide exclusive packages for their entire campus. That is also possible if you do discussion with private companies like Airtel or Jio or service provider. You need not always depend on what they provide. No, we can always bring them, so that it is made possible that every enrolled student, this is what these advanced universities like Manipal or advanced universities like autonomous institutions are doing actually. So which they have done it earlier, we can still do it. And also university institution must bring in a strategy to encourage the completion of projects rather than going for manipulation during this flood time, COVID time. I suggest strategies must be encouraged to complete the project in a proper way. So dissertation for UG and PG may be recommended under situations like this, may be based upon review studies, or it can be based upon the secondary database projects, or even the software driven projects must be allotted to the students or assigned to a student, rather than forcing them to conduct the traditional laboratory based studies or survey based assignments, which is not possible, may not be possible during the prevailing circumstances. And also faculty should be properly trained to use ICT and electronic teaching resources to address these obstacles, at least in the future. Now, if we are preparing ourselves, tomorrow anything comes similar to this, we can simply complete our portions or simply do our academic responsibility sincerely and effortlessly. That is what I feel. The syllabus can be, we should have a planning how much, and that's the reason I always say I must have a planning to divide my portion, how much portion I'm going to do with ICT, I'm going to do with the offline education. That's what I am doing. I do have a plan that I'm going to do once everything is normalized. I will not go back to full-fledged. I'm going to plan in a both way. Even I'm going to do it for upcoming sessions. So virtual training and internships, this is a big obstacle, as Unnikrishnan sir told. Our system, like our pharmacy situation, pharmacy or medical, is badly affected with poor LMS. We don't have an optimized LMS which can address the Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom's taxonomy or the cognitive learning part should be integrated into pharmacy education. So we read a lot of virtual training on internship based, or we need the robotics based or machine learning. I think our honorable president Suresh sir was telling that pharmacy council also planning to bring in a lot of robotics and machine learning, which is actually available, but how many institutions can afford it? That is a big question mark. So simulation in clinical training and learning may be essential. Laboratory simulations may be conducted, and industrial simulations are possible. And I have I had few experience with virtual industrial tour, which is a beautiful concept I felt, where institution collaborated with an institution, industry, where industry person will be sitting at the campus in his industry, in his office, and students will be at their home, and faculty will be assigned for industrial tour, just like what we do in actual industrial tour. They will take you through the same industry. I mean, that particular industry, they'll show you each room with the videos, animations, etc. Finally, you have a discussion session, like a boardroom session, with the industry man who will be sitting at his office and discussing the queries. So it's a beautiful experience, which I have experienced with Srinivas College of Pharmacy, I think 6-7 months back, and they conduct 2 more sessions similar to that. And many are coming out with such a session. And I always recommend, if possible, have live recording of the experiments what you are doing, at least from future, at least each experiment what we are conducting. If possible, if you can record it from a very close focus, these videos can be saved for future. So in similar situation, we can share this video so student can understand what is really happening. So a lot of informations can be shared in this way, which can really change the concept of ICT learning or ICT based learning or learning platform, or the challenges which I suggested earlier. Still there are challenges. I'm not saying it is complete, but still we need to move on. That is what I believe. So finally, I just want to conclude that online education has been the fringe for a long time, isn't it? Unnikrishnan sir told in 1970s in BITS, he had this online education or the computer-based education. But really the COVID-19 scenario made it mainstream, isn't it? It is now become mainstream, and our conventional become the secondary stream. Now, COVID-19 really led the adoption of online education on larger scale across the world for the first time. Yeah, that is a fact. Then ultimately, during COVID lockdown, personally, we learned so many lessons. I learned personally so many lessons about the online education. And that lesson should not be kept under the desk. Rather, we should use it for our future exigencies. We may face similar situation. We have to come out of it. Tomorrow, the flood may be there. Your class, our students' classes should not be messed up. So we need to use it. Examination, bring in the technology possible, so that examinations also should be conducted. Everything is possible. Only thing is we need to work on it. However, the fact remains that the phase where ICT are fully integrated with learning and teaching process, and which is called as normalization. You know what is normalization? Normalization is a phase where the technology is part of your life. So it will become a distant dream. The phase of normalization in our ICT-based education becomes a distant dream, at least for we academia, if we don't have a genuine beginning at this moment of time. So that is what I'm saying. Normalization should not be a distant dream. We all can do it possible with the assistance of our stakeholders. So I thank you all. And this is what I want to share you. Thank you, stay safe, and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful session. This is the time for question and answers. Anybody having questions can post the questions in the chat box.
Or they can
ask it. Dr. Sarath.
This is what, there is no action, there is no communication. This is a fact. Anyway, all may be hungry.
One second. Udayveer Singh, 1 second. I will unmute.
It's muted.
It's unmuted, sir. You can unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Sarath. Very nice session. I just wanted one clarification from you regarding the high flex learning. Could you be more elaborative on that? That's a new terminology probably I've come across, you know.
Sir, it is just a terminology. Probably you might have done it in your campus. Say high flex is nothing but you have the physical presence of the students in your classroom who may come. Okay. So you will be having your live streaming activated. You will be interacting with those students inside the classroom during the session. But at the same time, this streaming will go to other students who are not in a position to physically present in the class. So it is simultaneously live ICT-based tooling, education, simultaneously the conventional mode of teaching. That is what high flex means. It's a terminology. Different people, different people explain it a different way.
Okay, sir. But don't you think this high flex learning has got more of a disadvantage, because then students may think, let's relax at home, and when the teacher is going to give an online is going to always send a lecture or online simultaneous lectures going on,
Yeah, see, everything has got disadvantages, advantages, but why I adapted it? Because the reason is, in my classroom, some of them could not come, and we had the COVID protocol. No, we could not have everyone together. So if I bring 20% people now, next batch will be 20. So that first 20 will go and attend the classes from the internet sources like live sessions. And there may be health reasons in PG sessions and all. I have the people who are at the high risk category, like pregnant women are there who got to admit, who are in the classroom after getting married. Okay, so I could not ask them to come to the classroom. So I just asked them to be in the in their house or wherever, hostel, wherever, and simultaneously my classes will be carried out. So nobody's misses simultaneous interaction with everyone.
Okay, so thank you for explaining HighFlex, and a nice session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Participants can directly unmute and ask the questions.
Hope there are no queries.
Yeah, can wind up.
Hope there are no queries regarding this. Thank you, Sarath sir, for your wonderful sessions. For the next session, we will join at 2:15. Actually, the time is 2 o'clock. Now it's already 1:30.
Yes.
So have a break, and all of you can join by 2:15 for the next session. Thank you.
Coordinator, sir, I just want to slightly say that please keep the lectures on schedule, because we got other commitments
sir.
also, right?
Actually, today the inaugural session was there.
Right. So now we've only got half an hour break. Could you start at 2:30? That would be better. 2:15, that's fine. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. We will start by 2:30. No issues.
Thank you so much.
Tell the next speaker to me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarath sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next session will be at 2:30, right?